Before I show you what happens next, I must first tell you how this story started. After pissing off the gods, I was banished on a known island and given a single goal: rebuild the society. Sounds easy, right? Well, I had neither any knowledge of how to build a city nor the tools to create a simple campfire. So before I could start rebuilding anything, I first had to get some tools. My list of needed items was simple. I needed flax, sticks and stones to create my first primitive tools. And here it was, my first pickaxe, and then an axe. Even though I had tools that would improve my life immensely, I couldn't just go and build houses, workshops and other buildings required for society to prosper. For starters, a campfire was enough to protect me from nature's elements. And after the campfire, a humble shelter followed. But this one wasn't as simple to build. With a place to rest my head, it was time to let the world know what I was doing here and build the Eye of Odin. With this powerful structure, I would now be able to summon villagers. But these summons do not come without cost. For this to work, I needed to use Jotun's blood, which could be mined or harvested from enemies. Now that the first witness of this new civilization had been summoned, it was time to lay down the foundations of my first industrial buildings. While I waited for her arrival, the gatherer, stonecutter and woodcutter would help me immensely by gathering resources faster and taking a huge load off my shoulders. And here she was, my first villager. Being a good leader, I gave my shelter to her. I wasn't going to sleep anyway. I left her to build a workshop while I ventured out to look for more resources, especially Jotun blood to summon more villagers. What is the purpose of the workshop? Well, first, once it's built, I will be able to access the next tier tools, which are crucial for me. Second, I will be able to automate this process by assigning villagers. Now, with a large axe, I could gather logs that were needed for the upcoming upgrades, and with a large pickaxe, I could finally mine large stones. What was next? Well, even though it was still only spring, I had to move fast and prepare for the winter. That meant we needed farms as soon as possible, and I had to constantly summon villagers. But where were they going to live? Well, that's where the cottage came in. And yes, they would live like sardines. Hard times require drastic measures. Finally. Now that the cottage was done, it was time to build the farm. While I was assigning a worker to the workshop and giving him tasks, the farm was built. It was time to create some fields and assign a farm worker. Being a leader, not a farmer, I made a mistake. I assigned a task for only one season per year, so the farmer would do nothing for the other 3 seasons. As we were expanding rapidly, with our resource gatherers working hard in day and night shifts, we were starting to run out of space to store all the materials. It was time to finally build a warehouse, or at least something similar to that. While I was gathering resources at night, this happened. I rushed back to my village, making it just in time before one of my villagers got slaughtered by a skeleton. This was only the first test the gods gave us. We barely survived without any casualties. What would come next? With the village defended and storage built, it was time to slowly prepare for the Iron Age. And the first step towards that was the coal maker. Oh, and we also started building a watchtower, so the villagers could think they were safe, and I upgraded the Eye of Odin so I could assign people to the town militia. Without me even noticing, my builders completed the coal maker. With that, I unlocked the bloomery, so I placed the foundations for it. But what was the point of the bloomery if I had no iron to smelt? Yeah, I wasn't exactly the best leader of a village. Let's fix it. Time to build a mine and also a hunter's hut, finally. At this point, I started spamming building plans everywhere, which probably wasn't the best idea, but my village was growing very fast. My first cottage was full, and I also felt like I was lacking defense, so I built another tower. But who was I going to assign to these towers when no one was training archery? I was starting to realize that maybe the gods should have killed me instead of sending me to an unknown island to rebuild civilization. Good thing these seasons were very forgiving. There was some time left before winter came. Eventually I realized how farms worked, so that issue was fixed. I finished the mine and the second cottage, and then the gods tested us again. I was getting beaten up. I was neither a good warrior nor a good leader, but I started to realize that I was a good strategist. I used my villagers as meat shields, and while they were getting attacked, I snuck behind the enemies and beat them to death. Another test, free of death. At least something was going well. I found the corpses that were left lying on the ground, placed the foundations for a few very important buildings like the metal worker and the cooking hut, added more storage space, farmed, built some more, then farmed again, then built some more, and then I got into huge trouble. But it was fine, because I used my villagers as bait. What a great leader I am! Oh yeah, I also built a sled. That's cool, right? Which soon got destroyed by this fool. And eventually, we reached it, the Iron Age. I took the honor for myself and crafted my first iron tools with my own hands. This would skyrocket our progression because with an iron axe, we could finally harvest hardwood. here it was, our first carpentry hut. With it, we unlocked proper building materials. No more flimsy buildings, right? Well, it isn't that easy. Crafting these building materials takes a lot of time, and with my planning skills, it will take double the time needed. Okay, I had delayed this for too long. It was time to finally build the barracks and the archer training grounds. Right now my archers were just wasting arrows. Oh, and I started building the longhouse, which would actually be almost the same length as the cottage. Strange, right? Oh, that's a lot of stuff. That wasn't so hard, actually. It was autumn already. Winter was just around the corner, and I had no idea how bad it could get. Food production was kind of stable, cooks were working around the clock, but I was more worried about clothing. Would I be able to craft enough clothes for my villagers before winter came? With that in mind, I placed some more flax fields, hoping that this would help. But wait, who was assigned to crafting clothes? Oh, nobody. I wished to build another workshop dedicated purely to clothes, and while I was collecting resources for the new building, this happened. By a follower? She's dead. Winter wasn't even here yet, and I was taking huge losses in my village. I don't know what happened, maybe my villagers ate some strange shrooms or something, but they started throwing themselves in harm's way. At least you got revenge. Oh, come on! Fuck them! You must be fucking with me. It cannot be stunned? That is crazy. Ooh, ooh. That's not okay. Run away! No! I'm almost dead. I lost 2 villagers this night. No! And the winter is around the corner. My morale as a leader was shattered. I wanted to give up. I thought I was doomed, but these villagers needed me, so I mustered up my remaining strength and continued working. The weaver and eventually the leatherworking station was up and running. I crafted the first pair of clothes with my own hands. The leader has to be dressed well, right? And then I assigned a villager to continue the task. What kind of leader would I be if I didn't have a proper sword, right? Okay, finally. That should be enough, right? Alright. Just before winter came, a blood moon decided to show up. It was time to test my new toy, but first I had to run back home. I believe in you guys, don't die. My village had grown so strong that these blood moons didn't even scare me anymore. Here it was, winter. I had no clue what was going to happen, or if anything would happen, so I continued to upgrade my village as much as possible and kept summoning villagers whenever I could. You fool! You messed with the wrong neighborhood. There was one huge problem. Getting Jotun blood was becoming more and more difficult because I needed to go further and further to find stones for it. But I thought, hey, I can always make a campfire if I get cold. With that idea, I left the village. Little did I know. Do I have at least 10? 4? Yeah, I do have at least 10. That's fine. Let's go back home. No way, I cannot ignite it? I think I will start to lose health soon. If not for the roads I had built, I would probably be lying frozen to death somewhere in the forest. Cold is dangerous. Some of my villagers didn't even have clothes. I do wonder how they were still alive. I took matters into my own hands and crafted a few more clothing pieces for them. Days were flying by fast. Besides the constant cold, nothing was challenging our village. I couldn't go too far from the village to explore and farm. There was nothing to do besides building, so I decided to start planning out the defensive wall of the village. And eventually here it was, the last day of winter. I was starting to wonder, was the winter not scary at all? Or was I such a good leader that my preparations made the winter so easy? Oh, by the way, my hunter died from the cold, so maybe the winter was actually deadly. What a moron. Oh, that's the last piece, right? Oh yeah, baby. On the last morning of winter, the worst thing that could ever happen happened. Yeah, an overgrown rabbit invasion. Wow, very scary. Since nothing happened, I left out to explore the further parts of the island to find some Jotun blood for summons. While I was away, another blood moon happened, but this time I decided to trust my villagers and leave them on their own, and to my surprise, no one died. At this point I realized how far we had progressed as a village. Everything was working well, no one was starving, no one was lacking tools, and everyone was getting happier. I thought that from this point, this was going to be a very chill adventure, until... I had no idea what to expect, but one thing I knew for sure, if the game was giving me so much time to prepare, bad stuff was going to happen. So instead of growing the economy, it was time to start growing my forces in preparation for the invasion. My military was weak, both in numbers and in equipment. The weapons and clothing they were using weren't good enough. A lot of work was waiting for me. And what would be a better way to reward myself for reaching these achievements than to start building a chieftain's hut for myself? If only I had known how long this would take. For some reason, builders did not prioritize this building. I wonder why. Two out of one. Wait, what were you doing there? How you are still alive? While testing my new toys, I noticed that my villagers still kept going to the small spire. A tragedy was waiting to happen. I came up with the idea to build a small outpost with barracks and an arch tower to keep the followers away from my villagers. The idea was simple, but would it work? We would see. For now, let's build some trenches around our village to prepare for the invasion. The setup was complete, now time would show us if this works. With only 3 days left until the invasion, there wasn't much I could do to the village, so I went all in on the trenches and walls, thinking this would force the enemies to go through one narrow place. And here it was, the day of the invasion. I had done everything I could to protect this village. I hoped it would be enough. Now we wait. No! Why they started there? This is insane! This looks very bad. Yes! Whew. They couldn't even enter our city. We survived the battle. Some of the soldiers had fallen, but the village was protected. All that was left was to clean the bodies of the enemies and survive the remaining winter. I had no goals left, so I decided to finish the remaining defenses and then take one last good look at my village. thank you all for watching.